Welcome back, everyone. Man, I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, wow, we are exploring an incredibly intense case. If you're into urban exploration, heading out to those abandoned spaces, forgotten buildings, digging up lost history, this is 100% for you. But look, consider this a deeply terrifying cautionary tale. We always talk about the physical risks of exploring dilapidated structures, right? The rotten floorboards, exposed wiring, asbestos, the usual stuff. But today we're looking at a completely different kind of risk, the risk of the unknown. Let's walk through exactly what went wrong when four explorers walked into an absolute nightmare.
So, I want to start by posing this chilling question to you. Why do some abandoned doors lock from the outside? Think about it. It's a detail that should instantly set off massive alarm bells for any experienced urban explorer. When you're navigating a space designed for healing, like a hospital, a heavy door that secures from the hallway rather than the inside, that completely contradicts its entire purpose. It implies containment. It implies keeping something or someone locked in. Keep this question right in the back of your mind as we go, because it is literally the key to the dark forensic puzzle we're about to unravel. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Legend of St. Mary, a Cursed History. To really understand the danger here, we have to look at the backstory of our primary case study. St. Mary is this massive, weed-infested, broken-windowed behemoth of a structure. It was built back in 1930, and originally it was dedicated entirely to treating tuberculosis patients. But, well, things weren't exactly going great. By 1970, basically to avoid going completely bankrupt, they converted the whole place into a general hospital. And here is where the massive red flag pops up for any historical researcher. Just 10 years later, in 1980, the place abruptly and mysteriously closed. Just like that. The local community had absolutely no clear answers. Was it just bankruptcy, or were the dark rumors of severe, fatal medical malpractice actually true? Nobody knew for sure. The doors simply shut, the staff vanished overnight, and this massive building was just left to rot, generating this local aura of dread that kept everyone away. Well, everyone except for our subjects today. Moving right along to Section 2, Crossing the Threshold. Arrogance meets the unknown. So our subjects are four medical students, Sarah, Emily, Jake, and Mike, and they were riding high on overconfidence. They actually believed their deep medical knowledge effectively made them immune to local ghost stories. To them, the supernatural was just, science that hadn't been calculated yet. They looked at the local terror surrounding St. Mary not as a warning, but as an arrogant challenge. Now, to be fair, their logistical preparation was totally textbook. Step 1, they packed these powerful flashlights with fresh batteries. Step 2, they made sure all their phones were fully charged so they could document everything they found. And Step 3, they made their entry. At exactly 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, they slipped right into the unguarded, completely abandoned first-floor lobby. And honestly, at first, they were totally underwhelmed. They just flipped through some old 1970s medical records scattered on a dusty desk, scoffed at how mundane the whole thing was, and decided to push deeper up onto the second floor. Which brings us to Section 3, Forensics of Room 13, Anomaly on the Second Floor. As you can see, Room 13 was a massive architectural anomaly. A normal hospital layout relies on large windows for natural light, beds pushed neatly against the walls, and a nice, open, airy feeling to help with recovery. But Room 13? It was built like a maximum security prison cell. 0 windows, just 4 solid concrete walls, a heavy steel door, and a single metal bed bolted perfectly into the exact center of the room. Jake and Mike actually had to use their combined body weight just to force this incredibly heavy door open, and they were greeted by this massive, echoing metallic thud. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the physical evidence they uncovered in the dark, which was deeply, deeply disturbing. First off, the smell. It wasn't just the damp, gross mustiness of an old building. There was the sharp, metallic stench of old blood that was isolated exclusively to this one room. Second, they found heavily worn, torn ropes still securely tied to the legs of that center bed. Restraints. And finally,
all over the windowless walls, they found what looked to them like strange, ancient symbols, deeply carved right into the plaster. They really thought they had found a cool historical mystery. They had absolutely no idea they had just walked right into a trap.
Let's look at Section 4, Pure Psychological Terror. The trap closes. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine standing in the dead center of that pitch-black room. Suddenly, bang! The incredibly heavy metal door behind you slams completely shut. You just freeze. The air is entirely still, and then, right in that suffocating silence, you hear the distinct, heavy sound of footsteps walking away down the hallway outside. Panic instantly sets in. The students whip out their fully charged phones, only to discover absolutely zero cell service. They are entirely cut off from the outside world, totally trapped. As Jake and Mike frantically push against this immovable steel door, Sarah drops to the floor and flashes her light underneath that center bed. She pulls out an old hidden medical journal. As she hurriedly flips through the fragile pages, her medical training kicks in. She realizes this isn't standard hospital documentation. The journal details horrific, off-the-books, totally illegal medical experiments performed right where they are standing.
And then the environment itself actually reacts. The temperature in the room plummets drastically. It's suddenly freezing. Sarah looks up from the journal and sees a dark, distinct shadow moving independently right in the corner of the room. As she stares at it, this weave of absolute, paralyzing weakness washes over her. She experiences a horrifying, incredibly vivid vision. They were bringing the needles to my eyes. The terror is so absolute, so physically overwhelming that Sarah just collapses and faints right onto the cold concrete floor. At this point, the situation devolved into pure desperation. Jake and Mike are literally kicking, prying, and tearing at the metal door with their bare hands in the dark, screaming for help. Nothing works. But just as all hope vanishes, the steel door mysteriously groans and swings wide open, entirely on its own. Jake immediately scoops up the unconscious Sarah and they run, but the hospital isn't done with them yet. As they sprint down the halls carrying her, they experience this terrifying psychological loop. The stairwell isn't where it should be. Every single time they turn a corner, they somehow end up right back in front of room 13. It takes excruciating, methodical, step-by-step navigation, fighting through total spatial disorientation before they finally break out into the night air and rush Sarah to an actual modern hospital. Which brings us to the final piece, Section 5, the horrific truth revealed, deciphering the symbols. So once Sarah finally woke up in a safe hospital, the puzzle pieces violently snapped together. She told her friends about the vision that made her faint, that horrific vision of the needles. You see, the illegal experiments detailed in that hidden journal involved injecting unknown substances directly into the eyeballs of the patients, permanently blinding them. The heavy metal door locked from the outside to ensure they couldn't leave. And those strange, ancient-looking symbols carved all over the walls of room 13, they weren't symbols at all. They were the bloody, frantic scratch marks of newly blinded patients. They had been feeling their way along the walls in total darkness, literally tearing their fingernails off on the plaster as they desperately searched for a door that would never, ever open. It is a devastating reality, and one that completely shattered the students' arrogance. So I want to leave a question ringing in your ears today. What horrific truths are hiding in the abandoned buildings in your own neighborhood? When a building is left to rot behind a padlocked fence, it's not just some edgy playground for an urban explorer. It is a tomb for forgotten history. Respect the spaces you explore because sometimes the legends are entirely, terrifyingly real. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep your eyes open, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.